and welcome to the lunchtime series of webinars here at the Ireland chapter of the PMI. Welcome back to most of you. Thank you for joining us again today. Today, we are speaking on the topic of Microsoft Project for the Web and using it to increase our PMO maturity. And I am delighted to welcome back with us today, Director at Wellingtone, Baz. Hi, Baz.
Hi.
But also we have, Baz has Vince Hines, Managing Director at Wellingtone, joining him today as well.
Hi, everyone.
It's good to see you both here. And I know this is quite a popular topic. We've actually got quite a high registration for today's event. So today, to facilitate the Q&A, as both Vince and Baz will be speaking to us and will be presenting on the topic, we also have a Q&A session. And we have a number of questions for you today. So we're going to be using the menti.com poll. So I will be popping it into the stage chat periodically to remind you. But while you have a chance now, please grab your phone, go to menti.com and use the code 65187409. We have a couple of questions just to get the interaction and the engagement going. And then we do have a moderated Q&A, which you'll be able to access at any time on the Menti poll. Now, if you don't have your phone on you to hand for whatever reason, please feel free to pop your questions into the stage as well, and we'll make sure they get to Baz and Vince. So I think Baz will take some questions at the end of his session, and he'll hand over. Vince will go first, actually, my apologies, and he'll do a little Q&A if you have any questions for him, and then he'll hand over to Baz, and we'll do another Q&A. If you have any pressing questions throughout, I know Baz and Vince will be keeping an eye on that, so we'll try and answer them as we go along. So without further ado, I shall stop sharing my screen and allow you guys to take over. And I will also turn on the Menti poll in the background, guys, and I'll start letting you know. And actually, thank you. I can already see, because we have such professional members in this organization, in this chapter, people are already using the code. So I really appreciate that, guys. Thank you very much. Okay, over to you, Vince.
Lovely, thanks very much. Good morning, everyone. Conscious you're busy people, so we want to make best use of your time. And so we're just going to have, we split this into two sections. I'm going to talk about business process and project management maturity, and then Baz is going to take over. I'm the warm-up act. Baz will take over and talk to you about Microsoft tooling and give you a demo of that tooling and how it can help with developing your project management maturity and your PMO maturity, kind of intrinsically linked, those two things. So first of all, just a couple of things. As Katrina already mentioned, we will have a couple of Mentimeter Q&A sessions through this. At the end of my session, there's an opportunity to ask any questions if you want, or give a view. And again, more so at the end of Baz's session as well. All the slides that we present, we make sure that they're available to you as well. So don't feel like you've got to scribble any notes or anything like that. So all this information will be available to you. Just going to briefly introduce who we are. Don't want to dwell on that too much. Really want to focus on the conversation around developing maturity. And then, as I said, in about 20 minutes or so, I'll hand over to Baz and he takes over. So just very briefly, Wellingtone, we're a project management consultancy. We're in a number of different locations. A key thing, I guess, from a technology perspective is that we are a Microsoft Gold partner. So that's the highest level of relationship, if you like, you can have with Microsoft. We work very closely with them, both here in the UK and across Western Europe and Ireland as well. Separate to that, there's the professional body for project management here in the UK, the APM. We're accredited to deliver their qualifications. We also obviously link with PMI as well. And finally, we are a P3M3 Axelos consulting partner. So that means we can formally assess maturity of an organization in terms of project management. And when I say project management, I'm really referring to project, program, and portfolio management, the whole piece. So we have a range of services around consultancy, technology, and training. I guess our fundamental goal is to help our organizations improve, make a step change in their project management maturity, either through helping develop ways of working, the technology, or training as well. The joy of our work is that we get to work with all sorts of different organizations. There's some examples here. The one thing all these organizations have in common, they're all running projects. They all have a PMO or PMOs, and are all looking to improve their success of projects by developing their methods and governance, training their staff, and using the Microsoft technology as well. So that's what I want to talk about briefly, as I said before we hand over to Baz. So looking at how do we make a step change? How do we develop our maturity, our PMO maturity, our project management maturity? I guess I start off with some challenges. And I always kind of think, well, hopefully these don't resonate with you. Hopefully you're looking at this list saying, ha, that's not us. We are way beyond any of these challenges, but they are quite common challenges. So often for any organization, the first question I ask is, how many projects have you got? Is there a one definitive go-to source list of all the projects? What's their budgets? What's their deadlines? Who owns them? Who's the sponsor? Who's the project manager? What's the status of those projects? Is there a clear definitive list? And are we then running those projects in a consistent way? Or are we just leaning on individuals to take an approach that they feel fits them? What we want for any organization is to have a consistent approach that's scaled for the size of the project and type of project, that is applied in a consistent way. So we do have good information about where are we with all our projects. And hopefully then within those projects, we'll have good resource management, we'll have good risk management, we'll have good cost control as well. And then finally, hopefully, regular, consistent KPIs, red, amber, green, RAG, key performance indicators. How are these projects doing? Are they on budget? Red, amber, green. Are they going to deliver on time? Red, amber, green, and so on. So these are quite common challenges. This is some of the areas that have obviously a PMO. We want to drive through these challenges and actually face these challenges head on. If we can solve these things, we're definitely on that maturity path. Just as a wider point, we do a very large piece of research each year called the State of Project Management. You can download a free copy of the annual report from our website. One of the stats from that, and it's a question we've been asking for quite a few years, is what's the biggest challenge in your organization? Number one and number two are always, they sometimes flip, but it's always the same two. And that is, we're trying to do too much. We're running too many projects, and project managers need some training. And these are both areas that a PMO hopefully can actually help resolve. We can establish methods. We can train our project managers in those methods. We can train them in good planning technique. We can train them in risk management and all sorts of things related to their role. And also, as a PMO, we can help the organization make an informed decision about how many projects we can do, and perhaps more importantly, what are the priority projects? Which projects align best with corporate strategy? Which ones can we actually achieve? Which ones should we be focused on first? Just as a subtle kind of subline to that, if you are already prioritizing projects, it is quite a challenge. And you might find yourself kind of, we're rating our projects 1, 2, and 3. And therefore what that means is anyone running a project that's rated priority 3, never really gets any traction. What it must be recognized is more subtlety than just a very simple 1, 2, 3 type rating. And indeed, even a ranking 3 project could have activities that actually are higher priority in their own isolated way. So we might prioritize projects at that project level, but recognize there's some subtlety in that, and that we may have tasks within projects that are actually quite important. We're just about to go live. This is high priority. It might be a priority 3 project, but this is a very high priority task that does deserve attention for people involved in priority 1, priority 2 projects. So we could talk about that quite a lot. I did want to just show this slide. And again, hopefully this does not resonate with you, but maybe it does. Maybe get some kind of comfort from some of these very common challenges. What we then did is we also, in our research, we asked a question about a range of project management processes often driven by the PMO. From benefits realization, lessons learned, through to reporting. And we asked hundreds of practitioners about how valuable these processes are if done correctly, and separately, how difficult are they to embed. What we therefore can use that data to say which of these add the most value but are also the most difficult. I'm just going to get my laser pointer if I can, and just pick on a couple of these. Hopefully you can see my laser pointer. So over here, I wouldn't be too driven about the value level. What I'm more interested in is the difficulty. So if you are in a PMO and you are looking to make a step change, often we're looking to do the big ones: resource management, benefits realization, project prioritization, lessons learned. What I'm saying from this slide is these are definitely the most difficult to embed. Maybe these are better areas for you to start if you haven't fully developed these project management processes in your organization. Stakeholder engagement, risk management, and improved planning are easier to embed, yet bring a lot of value. I don't want to say, kind of business speak, start with the low-hanging fruit, but certainly these are areas that if I was developing a PMO, I would not start with benefits realization. I would not start with resource management. I would start over here with consistent reporting, making sure we've got good project sponsorship, document management, hopefully that's a given, and clear understanding of life cycle governance, projects being approved through the life cycle stages, and then these items as well. Once you get some traction on those, then go to these areas that are more difficult to embed. So I hope that slide is useful. And of course, I've talked about project management maturity. What do I mean by that? Well, you may have seen this sort of diagram before. 5 levels of project management maturity. Level 1, we're doing projects, we're kind of bumbling our way along, people are doing things, but there's no real defined process. Level 2 is when an organization kind of wakes up a little bit and says, hang on a minute, let's have a consistent way, at least for these big important projects that are on the corporate radar, that get a view maybe at kind of SLT, the senior leadership team type level. Let's make sure they're being reported on in a consistent way. Where we want to get to for any organization is level 3. So whether it's the big corporate project on the radar, or maybe it's a local project or a departmental project, there is a consistent approach to selecting, planning, running, and closing those projects out. And that approach, of course, should be scaled to reflect the size, the scale, the cost, the complexity, the risk of those projects. We don't want to take the same approach with a 10,000 euro project as we would with a 1 million euro project. We need to scale the amount of project management and therefore the amount of project management methodology and governance that's applied, but that should be clear to the organization. We should not be making this up ourselves on a project by project basis. What's our approach to document management? We should already know it. What's our approach to risk management? It should already be defined. So level 3 is the ideal for any organization to get to. Level 4, level 5, great places to be. So bearing that in mind, I was going to, and I guess, Katrina, I'm going to ask if we can do a kind of a next Mentimeter question, which is, in your organization, what level of project and portfolio management maturity do you think you're at? Level 1, 2, 3, or 5? Katrina, is that...
Would you like to show that on the screen here? There's a few people that have answered.
There's a few people who have answered already, are there?
Yep. So 3 is definitely coming out on top, I have to tell you, but
can we present that, or
you'll just have to stop sharing your screen? So there you.
Okay, hang on. Let me just do that.
So guys, you pop it into the Menti poll, 65187409. What level of PPM maturity would you give your organization? And as I was saying, there's a lot of there you go. So and actually coming in as well for you, Vince. So you've 3 to keep you on your toes. But yeah, it's really coming out on top. It's interesting. It's a lovely little bell curve, isn't it? Yeah.
And that's interesting. Interesting data. that kind of resonates with what we often see from the research data, which is a lot of people give themselves quite a good rating, and hopefully these ratings are accurate. If I can start showing my slides again.
There you go.
Thank you. Oh, this is.
Thanks. I just want to say, Gaurav, there's a couple of questions coming in as well. So if you have any questions for Vince, and we've already got 3 there, and you can see the questions as well on your phone. So if maybe someone's already asked the question that you want to ask Vince, otherwise feel free to pop your question in there, and hopefully we'll get to them. Yep, Vince, we can see your screen there. Perfectly.
Lovely. Thank you. So one piece of information about. So yeah, thank you for filling that in. Yeah, as you say, it was a good curve of answers. What we do ask people, and I've asked this question quite a lot in our research, is how satisfied are you with the current level of maturity, project management maturity in your organisation? And that level of satisfaction, as you can see here, the level of satisfaction, 35%, about a third are, which if I turn that the other way around, it means a lot of people are not. And in fact, what we've found over the last few years is the number of people who are satisfied, that number is getting less and less and less. It paints a relatively bleak picture. It might be suggesting that organisations are getting worse and worse and worse at project management. I don't think that's the case. I think actually it's the other way around, that people are becoming more aware of what good looks like, are going back into their own organisation and thinking, actually, we could be better at this. So this the bell curve, as you say, it actually is not dissimilar to the kind of the data that we receive when we ask people about the maturity in their department, or indeed across their organisation as well. So we're lining up with the same picture. And in terms of project management maturity, there are many characteristics. This is just on the surface of good, mature project management, some of the characteristics that we might look for. So, for example, have we got a defined, consistent method for selecting, planning, running, closing projects out? Have in your organisation, do people consistently create a scoping document, not as a tick box exercise halfway through the project, but rather to appease someone in assurance, but rather actually as a useful asset as part of the planning process, we are going to create that detailed scoping document. And looking at the planning piece, and I guess a key area for us often is that when we do work with organisations, there is recognition that actually our planning could be quite weak. We can get better at project planning, and this of course is where the tooling can really help us out. So one of the things we might want to do is we build a plan during that planning phase, and then we baseline that plan and compare actual progress against that baseline plan. What any good project manager should be able to say is not just where they are on the journey of their project, but where they are compared to where they should be, where we plan to be, where we expect it to be, that comparison against that baseline. And then finally, the fourth one here, risk management. Are we doing some risk management, or are we just crossing our fingers, hope the project goes okay? If something goes wrong, we all go, oh, it was going okay, and then this happened. Oh dear, whoops, what could I do? This is a call for good risk management. Let's look for those icebergs on the horizon before we just pile straight into them. So again, this is not a full list, of course it's not, but just some of the characteristics that we'd normally expect to see in a mature organization, driven again, championed again by the PMO. And in fact, as a wider question then, in terms of, okay, so how do we develop our project management maturity? What can the PMO do? Well, certainly developing our project management way of working, our methodology, our governance, ensuring that is fit for purpose and scaled for different projects, as I mentioned. Have the PMO champion best practice, champion the methodology, champion the tools, and training and support, which I'll talk about in a moment. 85% of organizations that run projects have a PMO. A significant portion of those PMOs are less than 2 years old. And so it's often a business function that's still finding its feet, justifying itself, maybe spending time collating manual reports rather than doing higher value activity, which we can do if we use the technology. If we use the technology, we can automate reporting, reducing that admin burden on the PMO, giving the PMO time to analyze data rather than just report on data. And then the final piece, of course, is about training and support. You saw that one of my first slides. One of the big reasons, big challenges for any organization is poorly trained project managers. I would add to that, and you might have noticed in that top 10 challenges, one of the other ones was poorly trained project sponsors. Do our sponsors know what they're supposed to be doing on this project, not just the project managers? What behaviors should we expect from our sponsors as well? So again, another area for the PMO to focus on is making sure that we have a consistent methods. People are trained in those methods, not just the project managers, but also higher levels as well for good governance, our project sponsors as well. So if we engage with an organization, it's typical that we look to develop and nurture growth and improvements in all of these areas, of course, driven by the PMO. The PMO is the champion of best practice, hopefully, within the organization. So that is the quick slide run through that I wanted to go through. I don't know, Katrina, if there are any questions at this stage for me. Otherwise, I can obviously hand over to Baz. I'm going to stop sharing.
Sharing, yeah, and if you don't, Baz, I think we're good for time. So there's a couple of questions here for you. So let me just throw them up on the screen. Hopefully you can see them here. Oh, okay, well, this is my first time doing this, guys, so this is where I can moderate this. So everyone, I'm going to ask for their patience while I figure out how to do that. I think that first one I can probably just give Vince to yourself and Baz maybe for later on. And yeah, I think there are ways to connect with you guys and to essentially, if people need to get in contact, they can absolutely do that. So for Vince, interested in your point about leaving benefits realization until the organization is more mature. Is there a risk of leaving it too late? So I think that was on your maturity model where you suggested that you wouldn't start with benefits realization, I think.
Yeah, I'm certainly, I guess my key point there is that benefits realization is difficult. In a PMO, I want to show the value of the PMO, show that we are adding value to the organization. If I try and wrestle that bear down, I could struggle with that as if I was an early activity I want to do. I'm suggesting that actually focusing on things like stakeholder engagement, planning, status reporting are easier to get wins in, get value in. But I certainly would not say, well, just leave it. It is so important. It is often one of the biggest challenges for any organization is benefits realization. You can start with that in the sense of making sure we've got a good business case or scoping document that outlines measurable benefits for each project, and making sure the project manager and the sponsor are focused on that, and then keeping the sponsor on the hook once the project's finished with measuring those benefits. So the PMO absolutely can lead the line. I'm not saying don't do it and give it another 6 months and do, but what I'm saying is it is a challenge, and maybe focus on other areas if you're having to justify your PMO first, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and you've kind of half answered another question, which I'll pop onto in a second, but I put this up because this is my favorite one. Because when you started that by saying poorly trained project managers, I could even feel myself get a little bit stressed. So I have to say, and these are all anonymously posted, by the way, guys. So if you're worried that you'll be identified, it's completely anonymous. We don't know who put this in, but too many managers complain about poorly trained project managers when it is often the business and sponsors and key stakeholders who use the training.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always prefer, if in any organization, if we can start with that education and training at the very highest level, and people can understand the benefits of project management and understanding their role as a sponsor. I mean, I've talked to this already, but their role as a sponsor, and recognizing they are representing the project into the organization. They're there to support the project manager and the project team. They're not there just to attend a meeting once a month, eat biscuits and just complain that the project's late. That isn't their job, but often is seen as their job. And it creates an awkward position, doesn't it, for the project manager? There's kind of an element there of having to manage upwards, trying to educate these people about what their role is. I think it's something definitely worth highlighting to and seeing how that can be resolved or attacked in any organisation.
Very good. Yeah, I think this is a valid point as well, like the ability and courage to stop projects. Would you consider it a sign of organisational maturity?
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, we can take lessons from a number of different industries, and the pharmaceutical industry as an example. Cancel quickly is very much the culture there. If we've got a project, an R&D project that isn't giving us results, the sooner we stop it, if we stop it quickly, that is actually seen as a success. That's a positive, because we can stop that quickly and put resource onto other projects. We tried that path, it didn't work, fine, and we found out as quick as we could, so we stopped and we started doing something else. And that is something that I think most industries can learn from, if not all, that actually there is benefit by being brave, just as they said, close the project down, and kill that project quickly so we can move our resource to something else. And that is a definitely sign of a mature organization. Okay, better for tracking metrics against baseline. So I would guess I would lean on the technology here, using technology to store a baseline and compare the actual plan against that baseline, making sure that we've got a clear understanding of what the KPIs are. I would absolutely, rather than allowing someone to kind of get their green crayon out every month and say, oh, it's green, actually have a defined rules about, if it's more than this percentage late, then it's amber. If it's more than this percentage late, then it's red. The same for budget, the same for risk score. You could have a risk score as well. There's some more qualitative rather than quantitative, but equally having asking the project manager to give what's their view of the project, red, amber, green. Although risks might be high, we actually might feel quite comfortable for whatever reason. And the other final comment I'd make on that is also, if they are amber or red, often it's useful to have some sort of commentary about what's our route back to green if we can.
Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, we did an exercise in a previous company I worked for, because I think this might resonate with all of our audience today. When you say your project is red, what do you mean? And actually, when we sat down and did exactly what you suggested there and wrote it on paper, it was a mix of quantity and quality. So there were numbers that you could put against it, like, well, we've overspent, that's money. There's a key date, a milestone date that we need to meet. But it was tricky, and it was a lot of over and back. And it was interesting because I think maybe it resonates back with the question about the training. Emotions played a huge part, particularly from the sponsors and the key stakeholders. The project managers were more capable of being objective about it. But if someone got an idea into their head that the project was in a bad state, it was very difficult to shift their opinion. So it's definitely a worthwhile exercise. I would recommend it to people to do that.
And the final thing I would say on that as well is that, in actual fact, an organization should encourage people to mark things amber and red. It should not be perceived as a bad project manager who has a red project. The best project manager in the world can have a project that's not going very well. It's important to flag that so that we can get support from the sponsor, support from the executive team to actually help change the situation on that. So, and that's a big cultural shift for a lot of organizations as well.
That's the often the more experienced project managers are on the projects that are most frequently read, because it's their expertise that's needed to wrangle them. You don't put your best project manager on the easiest projects.
Yeah, agree. Yeah.
It can be reputational fallout in that case.
Good. Maybe a good question here before we move on to Baz and let Baz start his. But so new PMO, defining what is your service catalog, what is the service you're providing to the organization is the first thing. and then look at those services, that range of services, and prioritize those in terms of, well, which one of these can we embed and can we get some wins? Unfortunately, a lot of PMOs, we have to justify ourselves. So making sure that we're adding value to the organization, consistent reporting, consistent stage gates, governance, life cycle are often good places to start. So if for the people asking this question, if you later on look at that chart I showed, giving value versus difficulty, I would definitely start on this side of that list, and get some quick wins. Don't try and boil the whole ocean. Don't try to do everything. Just get people on board, get some quick wins, and take the organization with you. If you've got that project manager or that sponsor who's kind of pushing back about what you're trying to do, don't ignore them, engage them and get them on side. There's a real need here for good stakeholder engagement, and be brave and go and have those conversations with people. We're here to develop project management maturity. These are things that we should definitely embed, having a consistent way. So do have a look at that list, but also I think defining your service catalog. What is the service you can provide to your organization is a critical input into that list as well. So I don't know whether we want to hand over to...
Let's hand over to Baz, and guys, you can keep putting your questions in, because we didn't cover all of those. So when we have time at the end, there's probably going to be a mix of a couple of questions there, but it's definitely a topic that people are very interested in, judging by the number of questions. So Baz, I shall let you take over there.
Thank you. I'm just going to share my screen, and then we can get going. Can you see my slide?
That's perfect. Yeah, I was waiting for the infinity loop, but I didn't get it. That's lovely.
No, I was looking out for that as well. It didn't happen now, did it? That's a bit weird. Okay, so thanks, Vince. I'm going to now build on top of what Vince kind of outlined earlier. He was talking a lot about process and how you can use that to drive your maturity. So I'm going to be showing you some of the technology that's available from Microsoft that can help you to reach that high level of maturity, or certainly reinforce a lot of the processes that you have established. But before we do that, I myself am going to ask a couple of questions, or a few. So what project management solutions are you currently using within your organization or your team? And we also have another question, which is, do you have access to Microsoft 365 and Teams? And lastly, I'll be asking, have you heard of Microsoft Project for the Web? So Katrina, should I stop sharing and go back to you for a moment? Katrina, are you there?
I am indeed.
Oh,
now,
good.
Hopefully you will see. So people ask.
Okay.
Now, I'm just going back. What applications do you typically use? So with Menti, the most common answer is the one that becomes the boldest. So MS Project is the most common answer, followed by Excel, which I must admit to using myself a lot. Particularly because most organizations I've worked in don't license everybody to access Microsoft Project. So often you end up even converting it into Excel to share it around the building. So Smartsheet, Jira, Confluence, some interesting ones there, Baz.
Yeah, but no, it follows a pattern that we often see, which is Microsoft Project. Everyone has it kind of pre-installed on their desktop, and that's what they think Microsoft Project is, but actually goes beyond the desktop application, as you will see today. And Excel, it's number 2 there. We often see it maybe even being the primary project management system within organizations, which is unbelievable. But we've seen it really extended beyond what it's meant to be doing to help organizations manage their projects.
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much. And what about the second question about the use of Microsoft Project or Teams? Oh,
yeah. So we had 13 people answered. So most people seem to have heard of Microsoft 365. We've got no no's there at all, but they do have a Microsoft Project for the Web. And I do know that because you've done a demo for us before, that number of yeses has increased as a result of that as well. I didn't know about it until the first webinar, to be perfectly honest with you.
Very good. Okay, so most organizations, well, certainly the response is quite a few have Microsoft 365, which is great because the solution that I'm going to be showcasing today sits within Microsoft 365. It's part of that platform. This question here, yeah, I can see the yeses are going up and up, which is interesting compared to the very first session that we did, because it was quite the opposite.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
Yeah.
Well, for those of you that are ticking no, hopefully you'll discover this brand new solution today. And even for the ones that have marked yes, I think you'll learn a bit more, because we've further developed the solution above and beyond where it was when I presented previously, which was maybe earlier in the year. So, okay, I will start sharing my screen again.
Let me head back to
Whoops.
and as always, to the audience, thanks guys for the interaction, because it is, webinars are a bit sterile, so it's hopefully it's a good way of making you feel like you're part of the conversation. So we appreciate when you give the time to the Menti poll. Thank you.
Thank you. And don't forget, we are going to be doing the Q&A at the end as well.
It was the infinity loop there for
it's back. So normal services resume. So if you bear with me, I'm just going to progress and go on to the next slide. So just before I do talk about the technology, let's just take a step back, look at the typical organization, which tends to be made up of a variety of departments and teams, including the all-important PMO, which we've touched upon earlier. And in one way or another, all of these departments, they are going to be connected. They are going to be running some joint projects. However, teams tend to use a variety of solutions, as we saw from the Menti poll just a moment ago. And that makes it very hard to collaborate and to get a joined up view of what's going on within the organization. The good news, however, as we saw earlier, many organizations do have access to Microsoft 365. And within that, you've got access to 3 distinct solutions that can help with task management, project management, and so forth. So we've got on one end of the spectrum, we have Microsoft Planner, which is a really simple board-based solution to create very lightweight plans. Then we have Project for the Web, which is the focus for today. And this is a step above Planner. And in fact, it's a step above standard Microsoft Project on the desktop as well. Really helps you to work together better than what you are doing using the standalone solutions. And for organizations that are making really heavy use of Microsoft Project on the desktop, so these are organizations that maybe have plans that are spanning thousands of lines, we have Microsoft Project Online, which is the official enterprise extension to Microsoft Project. But again, the focus for today is very much on Project for the Web. Before I talk about this slide, what I will say is we are seeing an increase in the number of organizations that maybe already have Project Online, but then they have a multitude of other departments within the organization that are not wanting to use Microsoft Project for whatever reason, but they do need something to help manage their projects better. And the organization generally wants to see an overview of all of the projects in one place through maybe Microsoft Power BI, which is the enterprise reporting solution from Microsoft. We have, as I was about to say, got an increase of organizations also adopting Project for the Web now, maybe within certain teams. So maybe the PMO uses Project Online, or most PMOs now are transitioning to Project for the Web. But again, you can have these hybrid setups. So again, the focus today is very much on Project for the Web. And for those of you that have already attended previous sessions, you will know that there are really 2 interfaces into this solution. You have the basic scheduling interface, which is really quite basic, and it enables you to create projects and tasks within those projects. But using Microsoft PowerApps, which is an app building solution for Microsoft, we can really extend what you can do with Project for the Web and make it much more of an enterprise-wide, portfolio-ready project management solution. So here you can see indicated by the purple coloring, these are some of the example elements that we can build on top of Project for the Web to give you a richer PPM experience. And that's obviously what I'm going to be demonstrating now. So I'm going to go into the demo. A very quick caveat, this is going to be a high-level presentation. I'm showing you some of the key concepts within Project for the Web. And if you do want to go into more detail and discuss specific use case scenarios within your organization, then use my contact details at the end to get in touch, and we can certainly set up a more detailed session. But for now, I'm going to jump over to my demo. So you guys should be able to see the homepage now to Office 365. Is that right? Can you see it?
Yep.
Yeah, very good. Okay, so this is where I'm going to start. And again, the solution that I'm presenting today, it's available natively within Office 365. which carries many benefits. One of those is licensing. So some of the licensing that's required, you might find that if you've already got Office 365, you're probably already covered. So I know that earlier when we looked at the Mentimeter, there were a range of third-party solutions that were being name-dropped, but you might actually be doubling up on your licensing because you might already be covered for some of the solutions that Microsoft provide. So from here, I'm going to go into the project icon. In fact, I've already got that open here. And the first screen that most users are going to see is Project Home. It shows me as an end user a personalized list of all of the projects that I'm involved in to some extent. And I've also got some of my favorites pinned along the top, but I'm not going to go into one of the existing projects as a start of a 10. I am going to go in and create a blank project. And by the way, Microsoft have now also made it possible for users to import plans in from Microsoft Project on the desktop. So if you are looking to transition from Project Desktop to Project for the Web, that process is becoming a lot easier. You can also actually base these new projects based upon templates as well. Today's demo, it's going to be in two parts. The first part is literally focused on the scheduling component of Project for the Web to show you how easy it is to build a brand new plan in a matter of minutes. And then I'm going to jump over to PowerApps, which is where we've built in some of the enhancements over and above what you get as standard out of the box. So in order to start my plan, all I'm going to do is start typing in the names of some of the tasks that I want to set up. So setup is actually what I'm going to type in at the beginning. Let's create task 1. Task 2, task 3, task 4. So I've created some very basic structure. We're going to go a step ahead here and create a bit of a hierarchy. So I'm going to make these elements subtasks, setup being the primary task. I've also got access to some standard out-of-the-box default columns on this display. And by the way, we are currently looking at the grid view. There's also a board view, a timeline view. I am going to be demonstrating all of the views today. But going back to the grid, I've got the ability here to add in some columns. So we get quite a few that are available for you to add in to your view as standard. You can also go in, add custom fields as well, which I will be doing in a moment. But for now, I'm going to drop in effort. Effort completed, effort remaining. Let's also drop in depends on, and I will now drop in a custom field. We're going to call this one status and create that, and that's done. So now I can set about assigning work to people. So Project for the Web, it's tied into your Azure Active Directory. So when I am looking for people, all I need to do is start typing in the name of the individual. So we're searching for Adele, Adele Vance, not Adele the singer, but Adele Vance. And I'm going to add her to my team. And this is one of the key points, or one of the key benefits I should have said, for Project for the Web. You can actually connect your projects to the Microsoft 365 groups, but some of you might be familiar with. So an example of that would be in Microsoft Teams. Many people use that solution to create teams. They add members to the team, and then they create different channels and share lots of content that you can collaborate on. So Project for the Web actually ties into the same exact security model. So here I can either create a brand new group, and I can indicate it's either private or public so that anybody can find it, or I can add this project to an existing group, which is exactly what I'm going to do. So I've got quite a few groups already in place. I'm going to search for the project demo group, and I've done that. So I will now add and assign. And as soon as I do that, you can see Adele's picture, and you should also see the group members number has jumped up to 6. So these are the existing group members that now have access to the plan that I'm creating. We can also, by the way, go in, add new members at any point. But when I go back to adding people to the team, I can now see a list of the group members, which is quite handy. And by the way, when I do assign work to individuals, then they will receive a task alert in their email. And by the end of August, Microsoft are releasing some enhanced resource management capability as well that will basically enable project managers to request resources And if you've got the role of resource managers in your organization, they will be able to see all of the incoming requests and approve or reject, or maybe even suggest a different resource. So there's more resource management capability that's coming. And this, by the way, is a fast evolving solution. Microsoft have got quite a lengthy roadmap in place. So there's lots of functionality that's coming down the pipe. Now, going back to this grid, we're also going to start typing in some durations. So we'll say 5 days, 6 days, 7 days, and 8 days. I can also see effort being automatically populated. It assumes that I want somebody to work on a task full time. That's not necessarily the case. So even though I'm assigning Adele 5 days to complete task 1, I'm going to go in and say, well, there's only 20 hours of work to do across the 5 days. So, spread it out however you want to. Depends on, I can very easily create some links between some of the tasks, but I'm going to use one of the other views to demonstrate that. I've also got the ability to put in this custom field that I demonstrated earlier. We called it status. And what I'm going to do here is add in some red, amber, green indicators. And now that I've done this, I'm going to copy and paste some of these elements just to indicate how things are progressing well or maybe terribly. But here I can also add in a bit of a descriptor, so I can say this one is on track, this one we can say is blocked, and we can also indicate that this one is at risk. So that's a very easy overview of the grid view. I can also, by the way, click down into these tasks, open up task information, and I've got the ability now to add in attachments. So I can add something from my local computer, from Teams, or link to an external URL as well. And for those of you that have maybe used Microsoft Planner in the past, you know that when you go into Planner, there's some really nice functionality around the task planning, because within tasks, you can also drop in checklists and add labels. So some of that functionality is also going to be heading over to Project for the Web, hopefully before the end of this calendar year. But for now, closing that out. In fact, we should give this project a title. So let's call this the PMI webinar and close that out. We've given it a name. Now I'm going to switch to the board view. So I was talking about Microsoft Planner just a moment ago. This view is pretty much a lift and shift from Planner, so it looks exactly the same. Minus a bit of functionality for now, but again, that's coming. So in the board view, I've got the ability to add in custom bucket names. So I could rename this. I could drop in different bespoke buckets. So we can have backlog, sprint 1, sprint 2, that kind of thing. But I can also group by who the work's been assigned to, which is quite handy. I can also group by progress, which is another nice standard out of the box view. So now we have not started, in progress, and completed. And to update the statuses, I can do this in a couple of ways. I can either click into the tasks and manually enter the information into the cells, or I can literally click, drag, and drop, as I've done there. And when I do that, you'll note that this task is now updated and marked as being 50% complete. But if I take it into completed, we can now see that it's completely done and dusted. And if I go into the grid, you will see that this carries across into this view as well. Switching over now to the...
Sorry, can I ask you, can you go back to that again for a second? Because I think it might actually link in with Eamon's question.
Okay.
This could handle Agile as well as waterfall.
It can.
And
yeah.
To me, I'm feeling like that's a good visual of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so that was one of the limitations of Microsoft Project on the desktop and even Project Online to some extent. Whereas with the latest iteration here, Project for the Web, Microsoft have consciously built in more agile views like the board, because many people want to work in this way. And I showed you earlier, you can set up custom buckets. So no matter what your agile framework looks like, you can mirror that to what you see here. Does that answer that question? I was going to drop in actually as a another point. So this is pretty lightweight in terms of agile project management. Microsoft do also have a heavyweight agile software development focused solution available, and it's called Azure DevOps. So that is something that is available over and above Project for the Web. But what we tend to find is when organizations say that they're working in an agile way, it tends to be pretty light, and this would definitely cater for those types of requirements. Eamon, was there anything else, or Did that answer your question?
No, I think that's fair. I just saw it pop up there, and we actually use Azure DevOps. So yeah, I think that's
Okay.
So yeah, so there's some capability in what you're demoing right now, and I suppose if you want to go full tilt, then consider doing the Azure DevOps.
Absolutely, yeah. But we'd be keen to engage with organisations that are dabbling with Agile, because we can provide recommendations around which way you should work and what the best solution fit might be. But as another point, and I will be going on to reporting a bit later, but even if you were using a combination of, let's say, Project for the Web and Azure DevOps, and the organization still wants that single view of what's going on, we can still provide that using Power BI. But
very good. Power BI, yes, thank you.
No problem. So switching over now to the timeline. Timeline for me is probably my favorite view, because I can play with it a bit more, I would say. But here we've got a visual representation of our plan. It's very similar to a Gantt chart. But what I can do here is create dependencies, as I've just done there. Simply by clicking, dragging, and dropping, I've been able to do that. I can also move tasks around manually, which is quite nice. And in fact, I will create another link there. And we've also got the ability to either shorten or extend tasks out and still go in and create those links. We can also still, mark items as being complete. You might not have heard that actually, because I'm not sharing computer audio, but you get a very satisfying ping. And actually, there's a lot in common between this and solutions like Microsoft To Do. So if you are using To Do, maybe to do some very simple task management for your own perspective, then the UI is very similar. The interface generally, or the interaction, the buttons, the sounds, they're all consistent, which is quite handy. But this again was a very simple look at the scheduling interface that is available within Project for the Web. I've just looked at the clock and nearly had a bit of a panic. I've got literally 9 minutes to go and a few more things to show. So again, I will keep this pretty brief. So Project for the Web, we can extend it using Microsoft PowerApps. And again, to frame this, PowerApps is a app building solution from Microsoft. It's really designed for organizations to be able to build and extend some of the solutions that Microsoft are providing, off the shelf, like Project for the Web. But they want organizations to be able to create solutions that are not off the shelf, very prescriptive in terms of this is how you should work. They want organizations to be able to build solutions, but that's what partners like Wellingtone can also jump in and do, is build what good looks like and provide that to you as a starting point to build on top of. So PowerApps, again, I won't spend too much time on this, but we've landed here on this home page. It's a dashboard. It's looking at some of the standard charts that are available out of this particular app. We can also substitute this for Power BI. So if you wanted something that was a bit more interactive, maybe a bit more visual, we can drop in Power BI. Now, with the PowerApps project app that we've built, we've actually got a couple of flavors for this. So we have Project for the Web for PMO. That's very much geared towards organizations that are managing larger projects. They're more sophisticated, more mature. When you might have teams that are maybe not so much project focused, maybe they are, a marketing team or another team that needs something that's pretty lightweight. We do also have Project for the Web for work. And if you get in touch with us, we can, talk a bit more about some of the differences there. But going into this version here, that's more akin to the PMO variant that I talked about, we've got a pipeline view. So this is where people can go in, submit brand new ideas or requests for new work items. And there's more behind the scenes that I'm not going to go into now just because of the time constraints that we have. But effectively what you can do is submit ideas. There's a bit of scoring that takes place in the background. You can see we've got a prioritization score that's being displayed there. But then in order to progress this into a live project, all you need to do is select it and activate it, and it ends up here in the projects list. And I will go into that, but before I do, I did want to show very quickly that you can also go in and view items grouped as programs. So if I go into this COVID-19 program, you will see that we have got some summary information on the initial page, the general page. We have financials that are being pulled through as well. Status updates that can be provided. And I will demonstrate some of these when I go into this specific project. But here we can see the projects that sit beneath the programs, and I've probably chosen not a very good example because there's only one project within this program currently. But I'm going to close out of this and go to the project view, sorry. And within the project view, you get this project register type of layout. So we can see there a listing of all the projects. We've got various columns displaying different information that we want to see, but you can also group items in any which way you want. So we've got some example views set up here, or example groupings. So we're currently grouping things by project type, which is quite handy. You could also group by sponsor, by department, by region, any which way you want. If I switch over now to this view, I'm going to actually drill down into an active project. And again, being conscious of the time, if anybody did want a deeper dive and do more in the way of Q&A around anything that I'm demonstrating here, all you need to do is drop me an email using the email address that's going to be coming up, and we'd be more than happy to provide some more detailed insight around this. So this is a project we've drilled down into. And I guess there's quite a bit that's being displayed on the screen right now. I'll show you a few of the key components. First of all, we can define a stage gate governance workflow here along the top. And this can change, by the way, depending on what information you're populating into the forms. So different project types or different interactions, different things that you're indicating can enable us to change the workflow on the fly so that it scales to fit the size and the complexity of a project, which is something that obviously you would want to do. It's not necessarily a one-size-fits-all approach, but here we can see that it's all integrated. We've got checklists that people need to complete to indicate compliance with what is requested for that particular stage. We've got a summary view here. Some of the information is typed in directly, and you can see it's all fully interactive. Some of the information is coming in from the schedule. So that's why we've got these padlock icons. And we've got status updates being displayed. And again, to tie in the plan that I showed you earlier, we've got a plan that's visible within PowerApps that's linked to the project. So we can provide end users with a single view of what's going on. So this is, again, a live plan. I can, if I want to, start editing and changing the information that's there. We've got a financials page, which I'm going to skip. Resources, we can see who's working on the project. We can see how many hours are booked in, how many have been completed, how many are remaining. And again, there's more resource management capability that's coming by the end of August. That's a upgrade, a resource app that Microsoft are going to be launching. We, of course, have access to all of our RAID logs and more. So we've got lots of risks and issues being indicated here. And if I drill down into one of these items, you will see that it is a relatively simple form that we've asked people to complete. This, again, is a start of a 10. We can enhance and extend and change some of the way in which some of the scoring is maybe performed. So this example here is a scale of 1 to 5. Some organizations want to work on a scale of 1 to 3 or something maybe a bit different to that. But again, this is an area of Project for the Web where you can add in a lot more detail around your projects. We also enable the capture of actions, issues, decisions, changelog items. People can also submit status reports, which is quite handy. Lessons learned is something that we captured, and benefits realization we talked about before. You can also specify benefits that the project is hoping to enable you to realize down the other end. You can also see aggregated views of things like risks and issues. Conscious of the time, so I am going to jump over very quickly to Power BI. And without going into too much detail, I will say that even out of the box, you do get a really comprehensive suite of dashboards and reports that cover a wide range of areas, as you can see there by the titles. But these reports are built using Power BI. They are configurable, they are customizable. We can also change things like the filters that you're able to select along the top, but they are fully interactive reports. And they're designed for live consumption on the fly by any level of stakeholder. So we can create some audience-specific reports and dashboards, but we have got the ability there to export into PowerPoint or to PDF, albeit with one or two caveats that, again, I can go on to in some of the one-on-one calls we might set up as a follow-on to this particular seminar. Last but not least, Microsoft Teams. We know that a great number of organizations now are using Microsoft Teams, especially because of the pandemic that we've had. It's really accelerated the rollout of Teams. So people are now more accustomed to working in the concept of Teams. And here we do have a team that we've set up. We've got a post window here. We can have centrally shared files. You can also go in, access the reporting dashboards as well. And we can, by the way, make this full screen display. But here, what you're going to see in a moment is actually the plan. So the plan is visible here within the Teams area. And what's really nice about this is you don't have to go and look at different tabs on your desktop. You can literally go into Teams, access the team that you want to work with on that particular day, and away you go. And we do also have the Power BI reports as well. What I'm going to do is just share my slide deck again and wrap this up before we get on to the Q&A session at the end. But in terms of next steps, we have a few options available. So firstly, if you would like to discuss with me a bespoke demo, or if you'd like to get a clearer understanding of what an implementation roadmap might look like within your organization, then please get in touch. We can provide you with a free envisioning workshop that might span, a couple of hours to half a day. But by the end of it, you will have a high-level implementation roadmap, and we can also provide you with a tailored proposal that you might then want to feed into a business case. We can also enable you to get an MOT for your PMO. Quite handy. There is an address that's being displayed. And by the way, we will share this address and all of the slide deck actually after this seminar today. So you can go along and see whether your PMO passes the MOT, whether it passes with some repairs, or whether it just failed. But either way, you'll get a clear indication of the health status of your PMO by going through that. And for anything else, just please get in touch. And on that note, our details are shared. You can email us. And by the way, Vince, I've misspelled your name there. It's got 2 N's in it, so I do apologize. But it's Vince with 1 N, vince.hines@wellington.co.uk. You can also connect to us on LinkedIn. You can find out more about Wellington and also follow Wellington on LinkedIn as well, where we do share quite a few news items. And of course, we have an annual event called Future PMO, which takes place in London. But it's a 1-day PMO event, and it's back this year in person in October. But I guess, Katrina, I'm going to hand back to you now to do some Q&A, if that's okay.
Yeah, do definitely. So we'll continue. Let's try and wrap up with a Q&A. I've just been looking. We've only a couple of people have left us because we're on the hour, but actually the majority of the audience is still with us. So I think
good.
Let me just go into the Q&A. So it's the first time I've used the Mentipool with the Q&A like this, so I have to say thanks to the audience for interacting, because one of the things I asked them to do on the chat there was just to even look at the questions that were asked already and upvote them. So with the time that we have left, so one of the questions coming up: does Project for the Web interface with SharePoint? So this would be handy for dealing with international customers. I guess this is in terms of sharing links and sharing access.
Yeah, absolutely, it does. I guess I'd be curious to understand what level of interaction you're talking about. But certainly, Project for the Web sits on top of Teams. The underlying platform that supports Teams, certainly for things like document management and content, generally is SharePoint. So the answer to that is yes, in short. But again, I'd be keen to discuss that in more detail.
Very good. I think this is probably a quick one to ask. Can I set up what my work week is? I was looking at this question earlier actually, and this is something in the traditional Microsoft on your desktop that you have to go in. If you don't go in at the beginning and set these controls, like you're really going to upset and it's typically, I think, set to the 40-hour week and the 5-day week. So I guess the question is that something that you can set up and modify on the web?
Yeah, so to some extent already, yes. But again, there's more resource management capability that's coming, and it will be here by the end of August. So by then, we expect to see this fully supported. But that is something that we can cater for.
Very good. I think this question's been asked on the chat as well, so let me pop it up. Do all colleagues have to be licensed to view and interact with Power BI?
Very good. So for Power BI reports generally, if you just want to view them, then even a free license would suffice. And actually, one of the things that Microsoft have done that's really, really quite good is in order to view some of the projects or to view the reports, as long as you've got a Microsoft 365 plan, like an E1, E3, or an E5, you can go in and view the items. You simply cannot interact, but you can view them. So to answer this question, as long as you've got a Microsoft 365 license and even the Power BI free, you should be able to view the standard report. But if there's any customized reporting content in Power BI, then ideally you would have Power BI Pro to be able to view that, unless you want to view it using the desktop app, which is free.
But I didn't know that, so that's actually handy to know that you can at least view. And I guess actually I might just jump on a question because I think it's maybe can I control access to the project I set up so that people can view it but not edit it?
Yes, so through the view only access you can. Okay. Now, when it comes to the schedule itself, if somebody's a member of a group, then currently you can't lock down what they can do with a plan. You can lock down what they can do when it comes to the PowerApps side of it, but not the plan itself. But this is an area where we expect Microsoft to implement more granular security controls. So that's one area to watch.
That makes sense. So, and then I think it's a similar kind of a how do I question. Can Planner handle predecessor and successors? I guess this is linking tasks with each other.
Yeah, so if you're talking about Microsoft Planner, then within Planner, you cannot set up dependencies. So that was one of the key limitations of Microsoft Planner and the reason why Microsoft introduced Project for the Web. Because that was a very widely requested feature in Planner, and Microsoft said, no, we're not going to take it that far, but we will release something that builds on top of what Planner can do and takes people away from the likes of Excel or Microsoft Project Desktop. They're not using the full capability that is.
Okay, so I will probably start to wrap it up now, but this is obviously a common question that gets asked about interfaces. So this is just one example of a question. Is there an interface with Jira, which we did see in the Menti poll earlier that some people on the call are using Jira, so it's just
the easiest answer would be to stop using Jira, use something from Microsoft. But no, on a serious note, there is no connector between Project for the Web and Jira. I know that when I showed you that project homepage at the beginning, yes. Microsoft did at one point have a view that they would enable some level of integration with Jira, but I've not heard anything on that for 2 years, so I don't know if that's still valid or not. But there is no connector between Project for the Web and Jira. I would have suggested that maybe we could export some of the data out, put it into Power BI to give people a single view. So that is something that's possible. But even saying that, you would have to export the data from Jira because there is no direct connector between Jira and Power BI. But one thing that I would say really quickly is because having spoken to a lot of customers that have maybe used Jira or maybe even Azure DevOps, when we scratch under the surface and find out what they're doing with either Jira or Azure DevOps, we find that they're using the most basic feature sets that are available, and they don't really need all of our power. So if you have got Office 365 or Microsoft 365 as it's now referred to as, it might be worth looking at your use case for something like Jira and making a decision on, well, do we actually need Jira or could we use something like Project for the Web instead?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So
yeah.
I will start to wrap up on this one. This one makes me laugh because, to be fair, it's very true. You are sort of at expert level. It's like watching somebody gaming. You're able to just fly through. But I mean, I do think it's a serious question. Like if I got this out of the box at work, could I tinker with it? Could I be familiar?
Oh no, it's very difficult. You definitely need our help. No. No, to be fair, it depends on what element you want to use. So if you wanted only to use that planning component at the beginning, then anybody can start using that really easily. It takes minutes to familiarize yourself with that basic interface. Now, when it comes to the Power Platform part, Microsoft did make available a accelerator solution, which is okay, but it's only been released on their development hub, not on their official site. So it's not a finished solution. It does have 1 or 2 bugs, whereas we can really accelerate the process for you to get up and running and help you to customize and configure it as well. So to answer this seriously, yes, to some extent, you might be able to do some of it without IT support. But when you get to the point where you really want to start configuring it and getting some real value add, it is easier to engage with a partner like us. And we are a specialist niche partner that focuses on project. Many years ago, when we wanted to implement Dynamics 365 for our own use, we've got expertise on it now, but back then we didn't. We called in one of our partners to help us get it set up because we just appreciate the fact that they could speed up that process, because we wanted to start getting value straight away, not a year down the line by the time we'd finally got it configured to the way in which we wanted to use it. I hope that answers that question.
It's a valid question, but I suppose that part of it for me as well is about kind of maybe taking a little bit of the power and the control away from IT support. That if you are a Microsoft house, if you can even just get access to familiarize yourself.
Right, okay.
But then also just to, like, I mean, I would agree with you. There is just familiarize yourself. Is this the tool that I want to use? And then, go and, get in contact with Wellingtone and say, right, I this is the tool for us.
I'm just thinking about the question that was asked, and it was, can we do it without IT support? I might have misread that and thought about the partner element, but if you're talking about the support of your own internal IT department, you might need them to provision the licenses for you in the first place. But it depends on how Office 365 has been set up, because now you can pretty much go and subscribe to many of the licenses by yourselves. But it's something that you might want to run by IT only to provision the licenses. But again, happy to take that question offline and discuss exactly what you meant by that.
Yeah, and I think there's probably a bit of an evolution there. I particularly liked when you showed, and I'm just going to call it the Agile view, where it was kind of like planning to doing.
Yeah.
It's sort of, it's quite powerful, but just get a taste of it, a flavor for it. But we have, the recording will be shared, so people will be able to get in touch. And as you said, I'll make sure that the slide deck is shared as well. So opportunities are still up on our YouTube channel, and they are available. The archive is available to members only as well. So because there are other demos that people can pop back through and have a look at them. And
yeah, there's one final point that I'll make, if that's okay. And I should have put this on the slide and I didn't. But if you are a Microsoft organization, you're using a lot of Microsoft licensing, and you're from a larger organization, you might have access to something called a Microsoft Enterprise Licensing Agreement. And as part of that, you do get some software assurance perks. And one of those are deployment planning service vouchers. So again, deployment planning service vouchers, if you've got those within your organization, then if you wanted to run through, really formalized requirements gathering and visioning process, Microsoft would pay for that. You would not pay a penny. That would be covered by Microsoft, and you could engage with us, and it wouldn't cost you anything just to do that initial fact-finding piece and get some more meat on the bones than what you might do with just a standalone envisioning session. So I can, by the way, Katrina, share some details with you offline for you to share with the attendees on that topic.
Definitely do that, because it is because the demos are popular. But I've said that myself. If you are part of a Microsoft house, if you've got Microsoft applications on your work laptop, then you're part of a Microsoft house. It's definitely worth asking the question, what level of plan do we have and what's in that? And that's what I'm saying is about taking the power away from IT, but it's a business tool. So ask the questions. That you could be surprised. It could turn out that actually these things are lying dormant in the background and you've not used them. And as you said, you could take advantage of some additional demos, and some consultancy expertise through Microsoft as well. So take advantage of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Check with your IT department whether or not you've got access to Project Plan 1, Project Plan 3, because historically lots of organizations have had Project on the desktop, and as they've adopted Office 365, they've been converted to Project Plan 3. So you might find that there's lots of licenses sitting there just dormant you could be making use of.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we'll leave it there. Vince, I have to say there was also more questions for you as well, so we might have to invite you back to
that would be lovely.
Double team again. So I really appreciate that, because it is interesting about where do you start, like in terms of PPM maturity, and what are the things, what are the baby steps, and what are the grand steps that you could take as you feel that the maturity is increasing. So I think that was really nice pairing with the practical demo and the practical application of the products that you might already have sitting.
We tried to cram a lot in there, but
So actually, the majority of people have stayed with us. So thanks to everyone for staying with us. As always, there's a technical PDU for attending. And if you're here on the live webinar with us, that will be taken care of for you. And as I said, in the coming days, the events archive will be updated. The recording will be popped up there, as well as the slides that came along with it. And Baz, I will take you up on that offer. If there's any links, etc., for people to follow if they want to find out more, I will share those as well. Okay.
Perfect. Well, thank you from me to everyone that's attended. Really do appreciate your time today.
Yeah,
yes,
really
absolutely.
And Vince, thanks very much. And Baz, appreciate you joining us again. And thanks to all of the people who've attended today. And we will have another webinar actually coming up in a couple of weeks' time. So I'll get to see you all and speak to you all again. That will be an interactive session. So it won't be a webinar. It will be a networking session. So we'll get a chance to see each other and talk to each other, which I know a lot of our chapter members do enjoy as well. So Vince and Baz, thank you again. And thanks to the audience.
Cheers.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers.